Welcome to the Let's Go Together podcast from CAA Atlantic, delivering all the conversations Atlantic Canadians need to hear. From adventure and safety to expert advice, we've got you covered. Join us as we explore all the ways CAA Atlantic shows up for you. I'm your host, Julia Kent. Now buckle up. Let's go together. Welcome, Shane.
Thank you, Julia.
I'm really happy that you're here for our pilot episode.
Super stoked.
Of the CAA Atlantic podcast. Let's go together. We have a bajillion things we could talk about today, and are going to touch on a lot of them. But first, I want to talk about who you are. So you are a director of travel and retail.
Correct.
So travel, self-explanatory, but retail meaning our branches, and we have seven offices basically that members can go to, or
we have 7 in a satellite travel one in Sydney.
Right. Okay. So it's like 7.5.
Yeah, 7 1/3. Let's say.
Okay. Let's say that. Okay. And you just you've had a big project you just completed basically like in the last 2 weeks. Like we just opened a new office.
Yeah. So that was kind of a brainchild of a few of us, and it's all around increasing the brand awareness and our brand strength in one of our, let's call it, underserved markets in Newfoundland. Yep. But absolutely thrilled with how that turned out.
So this is new for us on a few fronts. So first of all, we're moving office in St. John's, Newfoundland.
Correct. Done.
But it's in a mall.
Correct. Inside of the mall.
Inside the Avalon Mall.
Correct.
Right. So that's new for us. We've never had a location in a mall before. Uncharted territory.
Very much so. But Newfoundland's, very much a province, or St. John's particularly, where we were kind of in the strip mall setting like most of our branches. But in Newfoundland, with the unpredictableness of their weather, they're not, parking in one location and walking to multiple. In the freezing rain. Exactly. Freezing rain, wind, regular rain, snow. It was, we looked at a number of different factors and worked out that we should be where people go to. They go to the mall. And they go to the mall, and, it's actually the busiest mall east of Montreal. Oh, wow. So I didn't know that. Yeah. Jeez. So over 5.3 million visitors last year. Really? Wow. Yeah. Okay, so the Avalon Mall in St. John's is where it's at. Correct. Okay. All right. That's interesting. So today we're going to talk about travel. The best thing, the only thing that you can buy that actually makes you richer. Oh, really? I've never heard that before. That's a good one. So I kind of want to lay the land. So the purpose of this podcast, period, is we're going to talk about things that Atlantic Canadians are already talking about or want to talk about more. So things that they're interested in already. And, we are the travel experts, Canada's largest leisure travel agency. But I want to kind of lay the landscape here for everybody. Where are we today, I guess, post-pandemic? 2025, 5 years ago, the pandemic started, and we saw the travel industry and the landscape change dramatically during that time. Where do we find ourselves today? Have we made full recovery? Like, what's it look like? We've made full recovery plus probably 30%. Wow. Okay. So, and I think, being, as you said, the trusted travel advisor of Atlantic Canadians, I think travel advisors across the country have benefited, unfortunately, from the pandemic when, people that thought they should book it on their own, were out thousands of dollars because they weren't protected. They didn't know the T's and C's. They were, so they've come full circle now, and they want that, educated, trusted travel advisor to show them the world and make sure that they're doing it in a, not only valuable way, but also, a safe way.
Right. And so travel is back. We've established that it's back.
Couldn't be back.
But you touched on something there. Basically, having a travel advisor equals having an advocate for you, or someone that is looking out for you, handling everything if you were to book a trip. Yeah,
it's interesting when I talk to people about what we do, and they're like, a travel agency, like, I'm like, yeah, but it's no different to like what you do with your car, Yeah. You got to go and get your oil changed, 97.5%, probably 99% of the population go to a mechanic for that. Mm-hmm. No different to getting your taxes done. You go to an accountant for that, financial literacy that they have and that training they have. It's no different when you're, exploring, traveling to a different part of the world that you've never been. Using somebody that can get you there most efficiently, most valuable way, and make sure that you have the very best experience as a travel advisor.
Well, I mean, I saw firsthand during the pandemic when it broke out, the work travel advisors at CAA did to bring Canadians back to Canada, because we had all the snowbirds that were, we had people all over the world. I heard amazing stories about people in Brazil and, coming home. And just imagining the people that didn't have a travel advisor that spent 14 hours on hold with their airline
Minimum.
or their, and if you have a travel advisor, they were doing that for you, which was, value proposition wise, say no more. Like,
I know.
Yeah.
It that pot sold it for itself, but now it's, it's the experiences that they have. Our team now is we have 34 travel advisors, upwards of 900 years combined experience. This is their career for, almost all of them. This has been probably their only job or their only profession. And they bring that, knowledge and expertise every day to make sure that, our members and Atlantic Canadians, can value from that.
We have better flight options, it seems, pre-pandemic, but we are seeing an increased amount of direct flights, particularly out of Halifax for sure. Halifax being probably the easiest location in Atlantic Canada. Unsurprisingly, it's the biggest. What are we seeing in terms of trends, in terms of flight options out of Atlantic Canada, and how do Atlantic Canadians seem to feel about what's available? Yeah,
it's a great point, great question that, you get it, I get it as well. And, we're seeing still the domestic transborder hasn't fully returned to its capacity. But last year, we basically had a couple of fingers on the international capacity, but in 2025, we're actually going to exceed the capacity of 2019. For international, which would be, Caribbean, Europe, places like that where, we have more service than we ever have before.
Okay. So, and I know, for example, in Halifax, like they have put huge amount of emphasis on direct flights to Europe in particular. Like,
it was such a pain for Atlantic Canadians to have to go back to the center of the universe, and then fly over their house to go back. Whereas, we're seeing with, some things that have happened in the last few months, where Halifax now is, the people are, having a layover in Halifax before that international flight, which, it's kind of nice for Atlantic Canadians to be able to, give other parts of the country a bit of a taste of their own medicine.
Yeah, that's true. So you touched on something. You said domestic cross-border isn't back to pre-pandemic levels. So that means for us lay people, not in the travel industry, in the travel industry, that means like flights like Halifax, St. John, Halifax, like those like regional.
Yeah, so we don't have it. I shouldn't say we don't have any. I mean, we have Cana now servicing some of the maritime gateways, directly St. John, Halifax direct, Halifax, Sydney. But, we don't have the Halifax Charlottetown, Halifax Moncton, Halifax Fredericton like we used to have. We have less service, to Toronto, Billy Bishop, things like that we used to have, we don't have. And, and airlines, unfortunately, fun fact is Air Canada's down close to about 100 aircraft less in 2025 than they had in 2019. So,
that's huge.
Huge,
Is that because of like the bumps in seats? Like, is that because of the people flying, or is it just because they're working smarter, not harder?
More of that, but they're also, feeling the effects of supply chain, delays. They placed orders, in the, 2017, 2018, 2019 for, new, improved, more of a sustainable airplane that just haven't come yet.
Okay. And so like supply chain is still, like we're still talking about this?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So this is a long lead time, I guess.
Well, I mean, think about how long it takes to build an aircraft. It's
right. It's a big beast.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's hundreds of thousands of parts, and if one part or one aspect of it's delayed, it delays the entire thing.
Okay.
And then it kind of just trickles on. So, I don't want to talk too much on the supply chain stuff, but,
Right.
I think ultimately airlines, though, have realized that if they use bigger aircraft and less frequency, they can get the same result. So, we've seen an increase, I think, in efficiency from aircraft. And, fun fact, Air Canada just moved up in, on-time performance to, for the month of May, I was reading yesterday.
Wow,
top 5.
They were taking some heat on that.
Yeah, but this is the part of the whole ecosystem of travel that I find fascinating. Some people might not, but I don't want to stand with the airlines, but at the same time it's not always just their fault.
Right.
There's baggage handlers, there's TSA, CATSA, there's air traffic controllers, there's other there's other services and aspects that go into it, and oftentimes it's just easier for everybody to blame the airline when it might not be their fault.
Okay, you just kind of hit on something here, because we are representatives of the mobile public, the
Correct.
traveling public. We have members' best interests and non-members, just all travelers, all Atlantic Canadians.
Exactly.
We are also partners with a lot of different travel companies, whether it be cruise lines or airlines or tour operators. How do we kind of walk that line?
It's a fine line, but ultimately for us, it's in the best interest of members and Atlantic Canadians. That's our role, and you and I do it from two different aspects, and it's I think that we do a phenomenal job of really putting our members' foot forward first, and the Atlantic Canadians' foot forward first, while still being firm but fair with partners.
Yeah, and I think that when we think about things like the air passenger rights, we've kind of done a good job at advocating on behalf of Atlantic Canadians while also being understanding and working with our travel partners or our air travel partners.
Big time. And I mean,
to get the best outcome for Atlantic Canadians, basically.
That free app that we have, that 3 clicks or 4 clicks and a passenger,
website. It's a website.
Website.
Yeah.
It gives them all of that information in, and easy to dissect. Like,
yes,
for the, the person that
90
does
90 pages or something crazy. No one's reading through that.
No.
So for the, the listeners or watchers that don't know what we're talking about, CAA released an air passenger rights guide so that you actually know what your rights are if you encounter any sort of travel disruption, whether it be a lost bag or bumped from a flight or a delay.
Yep.
And so you can put in your exact scenario, and instead of reading through 90 pages, with who in their right mind is going to read through 90 pages? Not me. I think it's, so many clicks, 3 or 5, something like that. You can find out what you're owed.
Yep. Or if you're owed anything. It's just
or
that
if you're
peace of
owed
mind.
anything. That's
And
right,
I think we do a really good job of that.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's a website. I can't remember what the exact handle is, but we can put it.
We'll put the link in this.
We'll put the link in the show notes. That's right. But yeah, we've done a good job there. So I'm glad you touched on that. So I want to go back to, what we were talking about, what's hot, what's trending. So I know that like big, long trips, like bucket list trips, like dream trips are
Huge.
a thing right now.
I mean, we're seeing more and more, air prices are not going to come down, but we're seeing Atlantic Canadians maximize their investment to spend more time. They're, pre and posting everything, back to backing, it's our trend and we're seeing it. And, they're spending, they want the guidance of, the pre-planned aspect of a tour or a cruise, but then they want, free time on their own. Whether that's pre or post or both, usually we're seeing, and they want to.
So it's like 2 vacations in one, or
almost,
multiple vacations in one. Yeah.
I think we used to see 8 or 9 days, or maybe 10 days was the average, and now we're probably in the 14 to 17 range.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, and then we're also seeing a shift to true bucket list, like. Hottest destinations,
African
APAC.
safari.
Oh my God. Asia, Africa, Japan is, some places that we never used to sell from Atlantic Canada because it was always, too far, but
long shot.
One day I'll get there. After most people having, 3 or 4 years of their travel life taken away from them.
They're ready to go.
And it's
Seize
interesting.
the moment.
I call it SKI, S-K-I, Spend Kids Inheritance.
Okay.
And they're doing it with vengeance.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know. Good for them.
Yeah.
Good for if someone wants to take me on an African safari, please.
Hands down, best trip I ever did.
Oh, you've done it?
Yeah, South Africa.
Wow. Okay. So we talked a little bit about value, and that's part of the room, and the reason people are packing and their trips are really becoming bigger and longer and multi-trips. So I want to delve into what Atlantic Canadians are talking about. What's the biggest thing in the news right now, Shane?
Well, I mean, I hate to talk about the big elephant, but we're slowly seeing it in Atlantic Canada, the shift away from the US. But most people, some people, it's very, elbows up, very much, driven around the geopolitical stance. And a lot of other people, it's pure value.
Right.
The dollar now just doesn't go as far.
No.
And I mean, Atlantic Canadians, we actually don't see a lot of, domestic travel because, hotel prices and food prices and, activity prices across the country and across North America now are so much higher. Whereas, you can go to Europe and, it's $3.95 for a coffee in North America, You go to Europe, it's €1, which is like $1.60, $1.70.
Yeah.
Hotel prices a little bit cheaper, but it's the food cost, the living costs are just still so much less. It's probably the definition of true value. And then you go parts to, Asia, Africa, Australia, New Zealand. I was back home in February for 3 weeks. And
back home is Australia, by the way.
Correct. Yes. So
he doesn't just have an accent for nothing.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
So I was back home in Brisbane for 3 weeks, and it was, it was incredible to, spend $1 Canadian, but it was, I was getting $1.10 Australian.
Yes.
So I'm instant 10% savings.
Right.
So, and Europe is no different. The currency's a little bit different, more of a difference, 60, 70 cents kind of thing to, pound and euro. But, what you buy with that just goes so much further still.
So I want to ask one more question on prices, and then we're going to go back to the U.S.-Canadian relations and how that's affecting travel, because I have lots to dive in there. But you mentioned earlier, flight prices are not going to go down. And I mean, I'm thinking of the viewer or listener right now. A lot of the questions we get are about pricing, and cost of living, all these things. Why are flight prices not going down? Why are they the way they are to start with, and why are they not going to go down?
I mean, Canada has some of the highest, airport landing tax fees in the world. We're a vast country, large geographical footprint, but high concentrations of population in specific areas. The maintenance that airports need, airlines are at the mercy of that a little bit, but, fuel prices aren't going to go down either. Manufacturing costs are going up for jet fuel, more airlines are looking at, sustainable fuel alternatives. Which comes at a price tag, and, it's supply and demand as well. It's, demand is only going to continue to rise, which unfortunately, in the grand schemes of economics, it's directly correlated to that, increase. It's, I would love for, domestic pricing to drop a little bit and make it a little bit more attractive. But
because traveling to Europe right now is cheaper than traveling within Canada.
Yeah, and we're seeing that particularly from Atlantic Canada. Some other parts of the country, Ontario, Quebec, they're leading the way in domestic travel, I would say. But Atlantic Canadians, we're leaving and going across the pond.
Okay.
Chasing that value.
Okay, that's interesting.
And experience.
Right. Getting back to the Canadian political situation, Canada-US.
Yep.
A lot of Canadians have been quite angry and hurt.
Yep.
Kind of feels like your best friend betraying you or something like that. Although I am very careful to say, it's not necessarily all Americans. It's the current leader that have upset a lot of Canadians.
Yep.
And anecdotally, we heard about a lot of Canadians saying, I'm not going to the U.S. or I'm not doing business travel to the U.S. or whatever. What is the data saying? What are the numbers saying? What is true there? Did we actually see that? decrease? Because I know Air Canada came out and they said only a 10% decrease in travel to the U.S.
Yeah.
And I know things have cooled down since.
A little bit.
You
know, it's definitely, regionally specific. You know, I talked to my colleagues at CAAs in Ontario and Quebec, and I mean, they're down 30 to 50%. You know, for us in Atlantic Canada, we were probably flat for the first quarter, maybe single digits below. The last couple of months here, as we're probably not going to see the future bookings that we've seen. So I think they're taking it seriously in terms of, standing their ground and, sticking up for Canadians and Atlantic Canadians as a whole. But, ultimately, the value piece,
right.
It's, we're seeing,
people driven by the dollar or what they want to do anyway, rather than,
I think
which may be surprising to some listeners.
Making maybe a more, educated decision as opposed to, just following what they thought they wanted. Pricing in Europe and Asia Pacific is so much more,
attractive,
more valuable and attractive. It makes the most sense, I think, for Atlantic Canadians to experience a new culture, see a new country, and not do the same thing they've done before.
Well, I guess if people are politically inclined in their travel choices, that is great timing.
Yeah, big time.
It works out really well.
Huge.
Okay.
And, for us, it makes the job a lot easier as well because, we really, I think we see higher scores in, parts of the world that are untouched or untapped because it provides that bit more of a wow factor, less cookie cut.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah. I recently did I do monthly interviews with CTV on CTV Morning Live, and I recently did one on travel insurance, and this is the first time I've ever done this. And I have gotten countless people saying, I didn't know that about travel insurance or whatever. Quite frankly, before I started working for CAA, I didn't know anything about travel insurance. I didn't know why you needed it. I thought my credit card covered me.
Oh, Lord.
I think a lot of Atlantic Canadians are in that boat.
Probably. And it's, that there's multiple aspects of travel insurance. And, it really is a comprehensive product. It's like having house insurance, car insurance, it's a necessity, but it's, there is multiple avenues to get it. You might get it with your, extended benefits through work, through your credit card sometimes,
If it's international, I found out.
Yeah.
They're all different.
They're all different. I mean, it's, our team is trained and certified in, providing curated, one-to-one need when it comes to travel insurance because, I always just tell people, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Because, your work travel insurance or your credit card can only cover certain things and only up to certain amounts.
Correct. And I mean, in some credit cards, you have like the higher annual fee ones, they come with something that's fairly decent, but it's a bank, can I say it? Where it's, they want a loophole. They want a way out.
Right.
And contentious as that may be, it's, they're, in the business of providing value as well, but it's all about, bottom line dividends to shareholders and profit.
Yeah.
So, it's not going to be the most comprehensive product that a traveler should have.
Right. So we're going to do a whole episode.
Can't wait.
On travel insurance.
That's not going to be with me, though.
Not with you. It's with our travel insurance expert.
Correct.
Who knows more than you.
Way more.
And, I mean, it's really clear Atlantic Canadians want to know more about travel insurance. They want to understand it better. They want to understand. But I had a member after she saw that short 5-minute CTV hit
was great, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. On travel insurance, I think she was going out west to see her daughter or something for like a 4-day weekend. And she said, for like something crazy like
$22 probably.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. It was like $22 for the whole 4-day trip. And she was covered. Like, people don't understand. You need it within Canada for air ambulance, like all these things that are not covered. Hearing aids, like all these things that are very costly if they go awry.
We have universal health care, but, it's still, if somebody comes here and they need an ambulance, they're getting a bill.
Yeah.
They can go to the hospital and do most things at the hospital, but
they're getting a bill.
There's always going to be some kind of out of province bill.
That's another thing. travelers to Canada can get travel insurance.
Correct.
Yeah. So there's a lot to unpack there. And
Yep.
I mean, stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Because there's more
Truth
coming
is
on
coming.
that. The people have spoken. They want to hear about travel insurance. Okay. So we're nearing the end here. So I want to ask, what is new? What do people need to know about?
You know, some of our partners have seen the, you know, consistent growth that we've had across, you know, Atlantic Canada. They've put in some new services for this upcoming winter.
What are they?
You know, we're looking at that mindset shift now. Most people have their summer vacation or fall trip already booked, planned, and you know, taken care of. And, you know, we're sliding into that, you know, December through winter trip. So we have some very, very fun, you know, a little bit more experience-driven destinations coming from some of our sun partners.
So when I think experience-driven, I think like, oh gosh.
Jamaica.
Oh, well, I mean,
It's been years since we've had Jamaica here.
really?
Yeah, years.
Wow.
So
Okay.
Montego Bay is back.
Wow.
You
Okay.
know, our friends in Fredericton have some direct service this year
Wow.
coming.
Okay. And Atlantic Canadians love the direct flights.
Love it. And, you know, we've really seen kind of, you know, two hubs for the last couple of winters. You know, Halifax getting around probably 65%, and then Moncton getting, you know, probably 30%, and then, you know, a couple of other ones, you know, throughout. Maybe Newfoundland gets some as well. But otherwise, it's a lot of, like, you know, people driving to one of those hubs to get out. But, yeah, so they've, you know, Charlottetown has some new services. Punta Cana. You
Wow.
know, they don't have to drive across the bridge anymore.
I can imagine those sell out really
They don't
fast.
have to pay to leave the island anymore.
Oh, like I was talking to some Newfoundlanders, and those sun destination trips from St. John's, they're just all over that. They're just
All
like
over.
they
Like,
can't
it's
get
full.
enough.
You know, and we're seeing the benefits of, you know, other parts of the country are not getting these, you know, new, fun, you know, slightly more upscale, experience-driven options for people to travel to. You know, we do a lot of business to Jamaica, and, you know, we send a lot of Atlantic Canadians there, but they have to touch down in Montreal or Toronto. So now they have the ability, Halifax Direct.
Yeah, it's the
You know?
best.
Oh, it's perfect. You know,
It's perfect.
it's, you know, it takes that anxiety or stress out of it, of, you know, going to
Overnighting somewhere before
potentially, or, you know, having the risk of, you know, your swimsuit not arriving in your bag, or your favorite dinner attire not coming with you, you know, if there's a delay in that bag. So it, you know, taking that piece,
Just take your swimsuit and your carry-on.
Exactly.
I always do.
So yeah.
I mean, anything else people should know about in the current travel landscape? Current travel trends?
No, I just think it's, you know, cruising's doing very well. Guided touring is actually taking
we didn't even talk
off
about
again.
that.
We didn't. And, you know, it was something that, you know, we used to see probably on par with cruising pre-pandemic. You know, post, it was kind of a little bit slower to rebound. But this year it's really kind of jumping back. You know, people are wanting that, you know, escorted, guided experience through Europe and, you know, Central America, Asia, Australia, New Zealand. We're seeing it there as well, where, you know, they want to go and experience the country like a local, but, you know, with traveling with like-minded travelers, traveling with an expert curated itinerary, and, you know, doing things that you cannot do from Google.
Well, what I like about the guided tour model is I don't have time to think, to plan. I just want to go see Italy and have someone else plan all the restaurants and attractions and sightseeing and like everything for me. I want it done for me.
We just had a group come back from Tuscany, and, you know, it was one of the hidden gems of that tour. It was a 7-night Tuscan city stay, basically regional stay, you know, hub and spoking, one hotel, basically a land cruise.
Right.
You know, it was, but they went to a family owned and operated farm, and they made dinner with the family. Like, it was like Nona, and, you know,
I love
they
it.
made the pot, and, like, you know, all 12, I think, come back, and it was like, you know, they read it in the book or the brochure, but they really didn't, you know, understand. It was like
immersive.
It's not
really
commercialized. You know,
right.
it's
yeah.
you know, the company that we work with, it's kind of like, you know, one of their, you know, hands-on experiences that the public can't buy.
Right.
And, you know, they come back as like, that was the best thing ever.
Oh,
you know,
I just love that.
like, you know, they saw the Duomo in Florence, and, you know, but it was like that one home hosted experience that, was the number one thing that they've talked about since they got back.
This is a great futures episode to do, like a guided tours episode, because I've learned a lot recently, like multi-generational travel, religious-based travel.
Huge.
Like so much, the Christmas markets, the one we sell.
Yep.
It's German Christmas markets?
German Christmas markets. But it's the same kind of thing where, we sell, the Christmas markets on the river where
as a river cruise?
As a river cruise, but then we also have partners that sell it, as a city stay. So, you're really a local for a week, and, having worked in that realm of guided touring for 5 years, Europe transforms into like a fairy tale at Christmas. Like,
it's enchanting.
It really, it legitimately turns into Disney.
Yeah.
Like, and not Disney, but like a Disney story around,
yes,
snow and, the glühwein and, mulled cider, it's pretzels, walking around like a local, and
you're selling it.
I'm ready to go again.
Yeah, I mean, it's summer, but like I'm already thinking about Christmas now.
I know.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna end with a surprise. We're gonna end every episode with rapid fire questions. Okay, and I'm curating these specific to my guests, so specific to you. Okay, so there's not many, but there's enough to wrap it up.
Yeah.
So we're gonna start. So the goal is you answer with a word or two. First thing that comes to mind.
I'll try my best.
Okay, here we go.
Okay,
here we go. Okay, best golfer in the world. You can't wait too long. You have to answer.
See, like
no. There's two
best
answers. Golfer in the world.
There's two answers. My favorite golfer or the best golfer in the world.
I asked best golfer in the world.
I mean, it's probably got to be Scotty Scheffler.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that. Okay, if you could go to any country in the world, where?
Japan.
Ooh. Best part about being a dad?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, it's Father's Day this coming up here when we're filming this, but I just think the hugs, the love, the attitude that you're given, it's, the unpredictability of, toddlers is the best.
Yeah. Twin dad. For our listeners and watchers that don't know, plus one.
Twin girl dad plus
plus Oscar.
Monster.
Yeah. Best thing about Canada?
Other than my wife, I would just say it's almost like home.
Okay. Favorite CAA member benefit?
There's so many.
No, just pick one.
Probably my Shell discounts.
Oh, the Shell discounts. That's a popular one.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. Best thing about working at CAA?
I just think getting able to meet people that are, understand what we do, but also, still need education on what else we do because, fun fact, I just found out 2 weeks ago, I've been here 3.5 years. Did you know that you can get a free online will with CAA membership?
No, I didn't know this.
Me either.
Wow, that's a good one.
Yeah.
You were actually supposed to say your best thing about working at CAA.
It's my colleagues and Julia. Julia.
It's me. I think we're going to end it right there. Thank you, Shane, so much for
Julia.
chatting today. We'll have you on again. I like that. All right.